And we're going to welcome those watching our live stream, if we're live, yeah. For those of you at home or watching during the week, really good to have you with us. You're always welcome to come into our building as well. And if you're new here this morning, you're really, really welcome. Often in the summer we have visitors coming, so if that's you, great to have you. If you would like to know a bit more, we have a newcomers, a newsletter that goes out every week. It's a great way to find out what's going on. And if you're new, if you want to fill out a little welcome card that's down the back, we can let you know more that's what's happening as our church community. And again, I'll just say there is a parent and baby room out the back if anyone would like to use that, but very welcome for children to stay in as well. And then next we have, as I said earlier, we are not having our picnic outside, but we are going to go ahead with our picnic despite our barbecue, despite the rain. Cian has the barbecue on outside, and we've got food for everybody. So if you can, stay around for some lunch. We're going to have that at the back here, or we have a big hall upstairs as well. And there might be a few little surprises, definitely some games and things. And also on Friday, we'd planned to have a lovely walk, but it was a bit wet. So unfortunately that didn't happen. But we are having another one, so save the date. Hopefully it's a sunnier Friday evening, the 18th of August, around 6:30 p.m. And just keep an eye again on our newsletter, and we'll announce it here where that walk is going to be. But we're looking forward to that. And also Zoe, our children's and families worker, is doing a baptism information evening. Yeah, the baptism one, on next Sunday evening at 8 p.m. And that's online. Just if you're interested in getting your child or your baby baptized or dedicated, you can join that call just to find out a bit more. There's no commitment necessarily if you join it, but it's a good information. So if you can email Zoe at htrinity.ie. And then also we have this wonderful charity, the Alice Leahy Trust, that we support. They work with homeless men in the city. And at the moment, we don't want to just support them at Christmas, which we always do. We give the things they need. But all throughout the year, obviously, they're in need of things. And Ingrid was talking to one of the people who work there, and these are some of the things they need. So it will be great to collect these. You don't have to have them today, obviously, but just over the next few weeks. They need men's jeans. They can be ones you have, or if you feel you want to buy some in those sizes, 30-inch, 32-inch, 34-inch, straight leg, rather than skinny jeans or anything. These men would like just straight leg jeans. And then hoodies, the hoodies that zip up the front, that's something really useful for them too. And aerosol deodorants, which we'd collected before. Not roll-on deodorants, but aerosol ones, because they can leave them in the shelters for people to use. So if you do have those, we're going to have boxes over the next few weeks if you want to bring in any of that stuff for them. There'll be no tea and coffee after service because we're having it before the service, in between our 10 and 11:30 a.m. Services. So do come a bit early if you want to chat and get together. And if not, do stay for our barbecue, yeah. So have a little, actually we're going to do our collection, the next one, yeah. So if you are visitors, no obligation to give. But if you can give online, or if you want it, the baskets are going to go around now. But if we could say this little bit of liturgy together, just in our worship to God this way. So say it together with me. Lord, everything we have comes from you. So we respond in worship by giving these gifts and our lives back to you for the glory of your name. Amen. So do say hi to the person beside you. If you don't know them, ask them how their summer's going, and we'll come back together in a little while. Thanks.
There's a sound I love to hear. It's the sound of the Savior's robe as he walks into the room where people pray. Will he hear praises? He hears faith. There is a sound I love to hear. It's the sound of the Savior's robe as he walks into the room where people pray. Will we hear worship? He hears
All right, if you want to draw your conversations to a close, great to hear so much chat happening. Hello and good morning. If you missed the first welcome, my name's Colin. I'm part of the clergy team here at Holy Trinity. And if you're a visitor this morning, an extra warm welcome. Lovely to have you on this, the rainiest July of my lifetime. We're 2 weeks into cancelling a barbecue, but today we said we're not going to let it happen, because otherwise we'll be pushing off to goodness knows when. September we'll be doing one. So we're going to press on. We're going to have our barbecue. Kane's out there with the umbrellas, frying up some burgers and sausages. So please do hang around, and if you're new, more than welcome to join us. But we're a couple of weeks into our summer series in Genesis over these last few weeks, called Through the Generations, basically spending some time in the Old Testament, back in the first couple of books of the Bible, and really getting to grips. We've spent a lot of time in the New Testament looking at different things and different themes. We've done a Holy Spirit series, but we felt over the summer that actually we'd love to dig into some of the Old Testament stuff in the Bible. So we've got to just name it. They haven't necessarily been the easiest stories to work with. It's pretty comfy and cozy whenever we're reading the Gospels, and this feels really nice. But then we dig into some of Genesis, and some of these stories can be pretty arresting at times. They can be a bit bizarre for us to get our heads around. But nonetheless, there's been some incredible things that we've been drawing out of them. We've had some deceit. We've had some family breakdown, some violence, some pretty tricky stuff, but actually in and through all of it, the thing that we've been drawing out week in, week out, has been the faithfulness and the goodness of God in the midst of unfaithful, uncertain people. That actually the stories haven't been so much about the family of Abraham, but about the person of God and his goodness and his faithfulness in the midst of our unfaithfulness. So, last week, Rebecca brought us to the point in this story where Jacob had just swindled his brother's birthright, and the family inheritance had been taken, stolen from Esau. And the thing is, he'd done it for a bowl of measly stew. That was what Esau gave up his birthright. I think of all the things in the story, that's possibly the most tragic, that all that Esau got for his birthright was a bowl of lentil stew. Absolutely tragic. That's almost the most tragic thing. But a couple of weeks on, a couple of chapters on, and the story continues. And Jacob and his mother Rebecca, they're at it again to deceive and steal Esau's blessing from him this time. This time they're stealing Esau's blessing from his father Isaac. And look, there's not much to like about Jacob at this point. He's really living up to his name as the deceiver. But yet, all the way through, God continues to reaffirm his faithfulness to Jacob and to the family of Abraham to bring about his purposes. And so God remains faithful and true even whenever there's nothing faithful and nothing good in the person of Jacob. And so in the chapters that follow as the story unfolds, it's a really interesting way, because God remains faithful. He always does, and he's unchanging. But we actually are reminded that Jacob, he isn't immune to the reality of his bad decisions. The faithfulness of God isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card to do whatever he likes. He actually has to face some real repercussions for the decisions that he's made and for his actions. And so when we get to our passage today, chapter 28, just a few chapters on from last week, things actually aren't looking all that great for Jacob. So bad, in fact, that he's on the run, fearful for his life. All that he's done to Esau has tipped Esau over the edge, and Esau is out for blood. He wants his brother Jacob dead. Nothing else. And so we get into this story today, and Jacob's on the run, fearful for his life. He's fleeing from his homeland to find some refuge at his uncle Laban's place, which is about 750 kilometers away from where he's going in Haran. And so, because of Jacob's deceit, Esau wants to kill him. This is the state of the relationship. Jacob's stolen both his birthright and his blessing. His brother wants him dead. He's in a pretty bad situation. He's actually facing the repercussions of his decisions. And so halfway along this journey of Jacob's fleeing from where he was to his uncle's place today, this is where we arrive in our story in chapter 28. Jacob arrives at a place called Bethel, and he camps down for the night to sleep. It's about halfway in his journey, and as he nods off, he has this dream in which God speaks really, really powerfully and profoundly. That's where we're at today. That's what we're going to jump into in chapter 28 here. So please do follow along with me on screen as we read this portion together. Jacob left Beersheba and went towards Haran. He came to a certain place and stayed there for the night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place. And he dreamed that there was a stairway set up on the earth, the top of it reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And the Lord stood beside him and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father, the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I will give to you and to your offspring. And your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth. You shall spread abroad to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. And all the families of the earth shall be blessed in you and in your offspring. Know that I am with you and will keep you wherever you go and will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I've done what I've promised you. So then Jacob woke from his sleep and said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. So Jacob rose early in the morning, and he took the stone that he'd put under his head, set it up for a pillar, and poured oil on top of it. He called that place Bethel, but the name of the city was Luz at first. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, if God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I may come again to my father's house in peace, then surely the Lord shall be my God. It's a pretty interesting dream here for Jacob, isn't it? I mean, he might have had too much strong cheese the night before. He's lying down with a stone for a pillow. He's not comfortable. It's not a nice scenario, and he has this dream. Because some pretty strange things happen in our dreams, don't they? I don't know about you, but I've had a fair few strange ones in my life. And to be honest, I rarely remember my dreams. But Rebecca thankfully reminds me in the morning whenever we wake up that I've done something strange in the night. And it's actually happened a couple of times recently, or in the middle of the night, I've been dreaming that I think Rebecca is going to fall out of the bed or something like that, or she's falling and I need to catch her. And actually we've woken up in the middle of the night with me gripping onto Rebecca's leg in the middle of the night, like 4 a.m., like holding on so tight, hurting her leg, because I'm afraid that she's going to fall off the bed. No joke. I've no memory of it. Rebecca will shout, like, what are you doing? I'll just roll over, go back to sleep. That's one. Another one, there was a moment when we were on honeymoon in 2016, and somehow, I still don't know how this happened, but in my sleep, I took out extra breakdown cover on my car insurance. Legitimately took out breakdown cover on my car insurance. This happened somehow because we were in Mexico. So I think because of the different time zones, I got a phone call, which would have been morning time here, but it was like 4 a.m. in Mexico. And I just recently bought a car insurance policy a couple of weeks before. And so this guy from the insurance company called me saying, hello, would you be interested in taking out some of these extras in your car insurance policy? And in my sleeping state, I had a full conversation with this guy on the phone in Mexico, in bed, and I actually bought like 25 euros extra cover on my car insurance. Like legit, I did this in the middle of my sleep in a dream. I don't know if you were to fight that in court, how would that go? It's like, what sort of state was I in? I don't know. But I took out this extra insurance. And finally, one particular moment of dreams always stands out. Rebecca and I went traveling for a couple of months in 2019 before we started our ordination training. It was a great trip. And one night we were staying in this dorm. You know, we were living the backpacker's dream. It was like an 8-person dorm. It was like the second tier of dorm as well. It was like a 30-person dorm, but we said, we'll stick with the 8-person, that will do us. And so there's maybe 8 people in this room. And in the middle of the night, suddenly, this girl starts screaming at the top of her lungs. Like a blood-curdling scream in the middle of the storm. We had no idea who this girl is, what's going on. So I'm in my boxers, jumped down from the top bunk in this dorm, and I'm ready to fight. I don't know what's happening. A new place, never been there before. And I'm shouting, it's like, Rebecca, you okay? Are you okay? I think someone's robbing the room. This girl keeps screaming. It's pitch black. I'm in my boxers, like, ready to deck someone. No idea what is going on. It turns out this unknown girl, never met her before, she's having a night terror. So in the middle of this storm, she's having a night terror, screaming at the top of her lungs. She's fast asleep. And here I am, ready to knock someone out. And then the next thing, she just stops, rolls over, goes back to sleep, and job done. And I can guarantee you that no one else in that dorm slept a wink for the rest of the night other than her. She was out cold. The rest of us didn't sleep a wink. All sorts can happen in our dreams. I'm sure you've had lots of different experiences as well. And Jacob here, he's not exactly having a night terror, but it's actually an incredibly important moment for him. Because in this dream, God's speaking. He's reaffirming the covenant that he's made to the family of Abraham to bless the whole earth. And even more than that, though, God is giving Jacob a picture of what is to come in and through the work of Jesus, which you and I can experience here today. It's a really fascinating passage. So, chapter 28. Oh, I've jumped too far ahead. Chapter 28, verse 12. And it says this, and he dreamed that there was a stairway set up on the earth, the top of it reaching up to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. Now look, on its own, this is a really interesting moment in the story. This is an interesting dream. But from our point of view today, it can often be hard to, grasp some of the fullness of these stories because we're so far detached from the culture, from the life, from what's going on. So much of the meaning and the nuance is lost on us. However, I think if we put ourselves in the context for a little while this morning, we get to know the worldview. There's something which really powerful actually emerges beyond the initial reading of this dream, which I think gives the story a whole lot more power and punch. And so here we have this stairway to heaven, so good that Led Zeppelin wrote their song about it. And we're going to dig into it for a minute. But actually, before we dig in to this story this morning, I just want us to roll the pages back to chapter 11. We're in chapter 28 here today, but I want to roll the pages back to chapter 11 because this isn't actually the first mention in Genesis of this sort of tower or stairway to heaven. In fact, I want to say this morning that this morning is all about the story of two towers. The story of two towers. The first story is the Tower of Babel. A couple of chapters earlier in chapter 11, and the Tower of Babel represents the striving of humanity. All of humanity's work. It says this, Genesis 11, chapter 4, then they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heaven, and let us make a name for ourselves. Just a few chapters earlier than where we are today, and we read this, and it's the epitome of human striving and ego and achievement. Let's make a name for ourselves. Let's build something impressive. I think this story of Babel, it's like the first story of the self-made person, the self-made woman, the self-made man, the self-made people. Let's make a name for ourselves. Hard work, effort, control. We can do whatever we set our mind to. And at the time of the day, it's widely thought that the tower was something... I seem to have lost my... There we go. Thanks. I think the tower is widely thought to be something like this. Does anyone know what this is called? Ziggurat. Very good. That is 10 points over there. This is called a ziggurat. And this is widely thought what the Tower of Babel would have been like. And this is actually the ziggurat of Ur as it stands today after being restored in the late 1800s. What a mammoth of a thing. And these ziggurats, they were built to be towers which reached up into the heavens themselves. They were designated as places of worship to the gods of the day. Because if the gods were understood to live high above the earth, high above us mere humans, then so to confer with them, to talk with them, to meet with them clearly, we needed to draw as close as humanly possible to the gods themselves. And so if you could work hard enough, build it high enough, then maybe you could earn the favor of the gods. Maybe you could talk with them. Maybe the works of our hands will be enough. Our brilliance will be enough to earn the favor to converse with the gods, to earn their respect. And so you'll see this structure here. There would have been a temple up the top, like some around here, which isn't there anymore. And in this case, this temple was dedicated to the worship of the moon god Nana. Sacrifices would have been offered, ritual undertaken in an effort to please the god and receive a blessing. But particularly, I want you to look at this little section here of the steps. Look at this grand staircase. Whenever you're standing at the bottom of this, your eyes are naturally lifted heavenwards towards the skies, reaching up, naturally drawing our gaze. These stairs going up each side, they allowed the people and the priests to ascend, to go to the heavenlies, to where the gods were thought to be. And so this whole picture, it communicates this belief that we humans are at the bottom, but the deities, the gods, they're distant at the top. If only we can reach them. They're somewhere up there, out of our grasp, but we can try our hardest to reach them, to earn their favor. Are you with me? Yeah? You with me? We've got some nods. Good. And so this Tower of Babel is the picture, it's the epitome of the human effort to reach God, the striving of humanity. And so this is what I want us to have in our minds today whenever we're thinking about this dream at Bethel. So we jump forward in our passage today to chapter 28. We come across a very similar but yet a starkly different picture. And if the Tower of Babel is the striving of humanity, then I want to say the Tower of Bethel is actually the promise of his presence with us. The promise of his presence with us. 28 verse 12. And he dreamed that there was a stairway set up on earth, the top of it reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. I mean, does that sound familiar? Does that sound of a similar picture of what we were just describing of the Tower of Babel? What Jacob's seeing here in his dream, it's not like, it's not a brand new thing that he's never pictured, but actually it's something that's in his mind, something that he's familiar with, something that the culture knows. It's a known place of worship where humans have been trying their hardest to reach the gods above. But actually this dream at Bethel, it flips the story on its head because of the next 6 words that come in this. And the next 6 words are, and the Lord stood beside him. So he sees this stairway, angels ascending and descending, but yet the difference here is, and the Lord stood beside him. Bethel, actually it's the story of our faith, because this is the God who has come close. The God's not at the top of the stairway, a distant deity that we can't reach, but actually this God is standing beside Jacob. He's descended, he's come close, he's made the first move towards humanity in relationship. At the bottom of the ladder where Jacob lies is God who is not distant, not dependent on our works, but who's come close, whose movement is always towards us. And so from Genesis, this moment, I actually believe, is a foretelling of, the whole story of Scripture, the whole story of our faith, that God himself would descend to us, would put on flesh in Jesus and walk amongst us, that he would make the first move for the sake of reconciliation, for the sake of relationship. Nothing from the hands of Jacob. Nothing to do with Jacob's hard work, with his impressiveness, with his abilities, but actually all to do with the faithfulness of God. I actually think, it's pretty easy to get caught up in the mindset of being, a self-made woman or a self-made man, a self-made people, a self-made city. I remember in a lecture in college in my final year, the lecturer saying is like, look around at those sitting beside you. It's like, this is your competition. It's like, this is who you're up against for the best jobs. This is who you're up against for the best money. It's like, wow, that is pretty intense, isn't it? It's like all of a sudden these friendships that have been fostered for like 3-4 years are all turning on each other. It's like, I want the best engineering job. It's like, I'm going to do anything for it. But it's this idea, you gotta press on, you gotta hustle, you gotta work to get where you need to go. And actually, long before that, I remember it in primary school. My 6th class teacher, Miss Dunn, she had this great phrase that she used to tell us all the time, and it was, if it is to be, then it's up to me. If it is to be, then it's up to me. And look, there's real truth to that, We're not just passengers of our circumstance. We're not products of our circumstance. We can affect change. We can make a difference. But if it is to be, it's up to me. And I actually think that thinking can really take hold of our life, can really shape our life, can shape how we go through our days and our weeks. And like Scott, who opened our series, he was talking about learning to hold things properly, to hold things well, not loosely, not tightly, but to hold things well. We live with this pressure of achievement, of making a name for ourselves, of getting ahead. If this is a competition, I need the advantage. I need to be ahead of everyone and anyone else. And I think that mindset, that culture, actually it creeps into our faith. It creeps into our church in a really powerful, undermining way that we just need to be aware of. We hear this story of grace, of a God who moves towards us, who wants relationship with us. But yet we find it unbelievably difficult sometimes to accept the gift of grace. We disqualify ourselves for any number of reasons. Intelligence, age, experience, confidence, background, race, wealth, shame, anger, hurt and brokenness. We think these things somehow get in the way of us reaching God, reaching what it is that we're supposed to. That we've got to earn this love and earn this grace somehow. That we've got to build our own towers to climb them. If only you knew what I did, what I thought, what I'm carrying, what mistakes I've made, then you'd know that God wouldn't actually want to come close. He wouldn't actually want relationship. And so, like the people at the Tower of Babel, we work hard to make up for our failures. We try to make a name for ourselves, to prove our worth to ourselves, to each other, and inherently to God also. But actually, all we really end up doing is putting on facades, exhausting ourselves, becoming more confused and disoriented. We feel like imposters and frauds. But here we have Jacob, the deceiver, far from perfect, far from deserving. But yet the Lord stood beside him. The Lord made the move from heaven to earth to promise his presence with Jacob, to say, I am with you. I stand beside you, not through Jacob's works or perfect character, but because of God's works and perfect character. Again, it's the same story throughout all of this story in Genesis. Not because of our works, but because of the perfect character and love of God. And if you want to know who holds the power in this story, just read this again. I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I will give to you and your offspring. And the offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west and the east, the north and the south. All the families shall be blessed in you and your offspring. Know that I am with you and will keep you wherever you go and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. This story, this dream, is all about the movement of God, the promises of God towards us. There's not a mention of Jacob bringing anything to the table here. Absolutely nothing. And so where Babel shows the striving of humanity, actually this dream, this moment at Bethel, it's a reminder and a foretelling of the promise of the presence of God with us, with his people. the God who comes close and stands beside. This is the story of our faith. This is the story of our God. Restoring and reconciling relationships with his people. That's what it's been about from day one, and that's what it's about today. And so this morning, I just want to land for us to take a moment to stop and to ask ourselves this question, where do we see the Tower of Babel at work in our own hearts and in our own lives? Where do we see it at work more than we see the Tower of Bethel? Where are we striving rather than resting in his presence? Striving to win his favor and approval, covering up our brokenness, our insecurities, our fear. Where have we bought into that idea that if it is to be, it's up to me? How many of us have bought into that? Where have we disqualified ourselves? Where have you disqualified yourself from engaging and receiving the love and the grace and the mercy of God this morning, his extravagant love? Because this morning, I want you to know that you don't need your good work to get into God's good books. You don't need your good work to get into God's good books. He's already made the move towards you in relationship through his son Jesus on the cross and by sending his Spirit to live in each and every one of us. Whilst we were still far off, he runs to meet us as his son. And so he's present with us today, and he's present with you today. So why don't we stand just as a moment of response? Why don't we stand? I just feel like the call for us this morning, in light of this story, in light of this dream, is just to leave our strivings behind. Where we've seen the Tower of Babel at work in our own heart, where we've been masking, covering up, bringing whatever stuff that we bring, and we feel like it disqualifies us. The call this morning is to leave our strivings at the feet of Jesus and to be a people who live in the promise of his presence, knowing that he is with us, that he is for us, that he walks beside us. So why don't we just